Well, good morning. How are you all today? Welcome to Integrative Preparedness. I'm Steve Smith. And in case you aren't aware, they can now read your mind. Apple just bought an Israeli technology from, well, I'll get into that in a second, that enables them to know what you're going to say before you say it. And it probably goes a little bit beyond that. So I'm going to read you something here and then we'll talk about it. First, I want to remind you that this and all of my videos are brought to you by the Stonemont series, my books, the complete guide to preparing for, surviving, and rebuilding after a total collapse of everything, the reversion, the revival, the renewal, an appeal to heaven, the blessings of freedom, hostages to fortune, and on wings like eagles. If you haven't read them yet, I suggest you do. It'll change the way you approach preparedness. It'll change the way you look at everything. You can get them a couple of different ways. You can either get them through Amazon, that link's down below, or you can get them directly from me through our website, stonemont.us, and that link is also down below. If you get them from me, and I love it when you do that, because then I sign each one for you. I write a note in each one for you. I'll tell you something funny about that too. And you can also buy them as a whole set. You can't do that through Amazon. You can do that only through us, and you get a little bit break on the price because we save money when we ship them out to you like that. And we also toss in the Stonemont notebook for free from me to you. And people love that too. And I'll tell you something funny. I wrote an inscription in a set of books, or was it a just single book or a set? Doesn't matter. To two beautiful women. If you order through me, you can request up to a certain point what you would like me to write in there, to so-and-so, to so-and-so. If you don't put anything in there and you just say, well, I just want a personalized message to me, then I make it out to you, whoever ordered it, and I put in a note. But there is a place when you order through our website to say, what would you like Steve to write in there? And of course, some people want to, send gifts to their kids or friends or whoever, wife, husband, and so it enables you to let me know, would you make this out to so and so? And I certainly will. And I've had a couple of funny requests. I had one person sometime back ask me to put a drop of coffee on the signing page with each one, because we always drink coffee when we talk here, right? And my books, it's always about Jim drinking coffee, isn't it? By the way, get yourself something to sip on while we talk about this. I thought that was funny, so I did, and I put a drop of coffee on the sign page after I signed it and everything. I did have one person say, would you include your chili recipe? And I did, and I said, and I'm not going to do that anymore. I fill up a whole page of my recipe, and I just don't, I can't do that, so a simple message, whatever. So there you go. If you haven't read them, you'll love them. I've had people tell me they've read through the whole series 5 times and still love it and still learning stuff. So you can get that through Amazon or our website, stonemont.us. Okay. There's a lot of concerning things going on in our world, isn't there? We are surrounded by enemies. I'm going to do another one on that next time. But this one came up, and I thought that I'd start with this one. And it is about what they call pre-speech. And it's and this article comes. I'm going to read a little bit of this article from the Gray Zone. Some of you might follow that. The Gray Zone. Now, they're in this article, there are going to be some things that kind of slant politically. I'm not going to try to edit that out. You may agree with it. You may not agree with it. I'm not going to, well, I think some of you know how I feel about this, but I'm going to leave that aside. What the concerning thing here is the technology and what it has, how it threatens so many things. I mean, it threatens our obviously, it threatens our privacy. It threatens our security. It threatens our very survival. And matter of fact, I just put up one on the Patreon channel. And if you're not with us there, you can come join it. The link's down below. Join us on Patreon. I put stuff up over there that I don't put up on YouTube. And the one that I just put up over there was about how to defeat microwave weapons. Do we need to know that? Maybe, right? Okay. All right, let me read this. I still need my glasses to read up close because the eye that I had fixed, I had it fixed to look distances, not computer. Okay, so we'll see what happens. Okay, so here's the article from the Gray Zone. It says Apple buys Israeli pre-speech tech firm implicated in the Gaza genocide. Now, some of you think that it was a genocide. Some of you don't. We're going to leave that over here, okay? No reason to have any comments about that. Okay, the subhead is the world's second largest tech company just acquired a military-linked Israeli startup that uses facial skin micro movements to anticipate what users will say before they speak. Okay, now this is a technological advancement against the use of either offensively or defensively with micro expressions. So many of you are familiar with the concept of micro expressions. It is those elements, those expressions is the face that the person is not conscious of making and gives you an insight into what they're thinking or feeling, right? I touch on this in one of my books, I forget which, but they can not only be used to see how somebody else is doing it, but if you are a master of using micro expressions yourself, you can send messages, and it is a very important intelligence tool to use. So anyway, this goes far beyond that, and you'll see why. It says tech giant Apple has quietly paid nearly $2 billion for a pre-speech tech company whose employees helped Israel. Okay. In the second biggest deal in its history, Apple paid this money for a company that doesn't have a product, doesn't have any revenues, and whose website is a single page containing 15 words. I didn't go to the website. You feel free to. I'll post this whenever I put up something on YouTube. I also put it up on the Patreon channel, and then I'll put a link. Then I can put links down on the Patreon channel to this in case you'd like to read it yourself, or pass it on to other people. The company QAI is developing sensors which map the imperceptible movements of a human face to determine the words someone is thinking before they're spoken. Do you believe that? Well, I do. Why do I believe it? Because every time something has come along that seems unbelievable, we find out that, yep, it did happen. Do you remember the first time you heard about computers? Right? And people tried to explain to me computers, and I said, "Oh man, I just don't get that." Okay, so they map these imperceptible movements of a human face to determine the words someone is thinking before they're spoken. They call it silent speech or pre-speech, and it appears to be exactly as sinister as it sounds. QAI was founded by, now get this, heads up, ears open, Aviad, I don't know if I pronounced that right. I don't speak Hebrew or Yiddish or Israeli or QI was founded by Aviad Maisels, Avi Barilla, something like that, and Jonathan Wexler, all of whom honed their skills by testing technologies of apartheid on Palestinians. Maisels is a former commander of Unit 81, the IDF division which builds Israel's offensive cyber weapons. Barlia, according to his LinkedIn, was an intelligence officer in the Israeli Air Force, while Wexler is a former Unit 8200 agent. Look up Unit 8200. In a blog post announcing the deal, Tom Holm, an executive of Google Ventures, one of the company's early investors, revealed that 30% of QAI's more than 100 staff were called up to participate in the operation in Gaza. This admission means dozens of people implicated in the genocidal acts who served under the political command of Yoav Gallant, an ICC-indicted war criminal, are now Apple employees. Okay, you see that there was a slant there. I'm not going to say whether it's true or not. This isn't, I'm not using this platform to talk about that or my feelings about it. That's just the way they wrote it, and I wasn't able to mentally edit as I read it. So it should be a huge scandal. The biggest company in the U.S., one of the world's most recognizable names, has folded into its staff dozens of people who served in the military during the period of committed during the operations there, according to all of the world's most acclaimed rights experts. But every single mainstream article which covers news of the deal, from Reuters to Financial Times, ignored this. It said FT. I'm assuming that's the Financial Times. Ignored this fact. Mainstream coverage also ignored a number of the other extremely cogent elements to the story, including the nature of the deal and the technology itself. QAI's website consists of just 15 words. I don't know what like I said, I didn't look it up. Look it up yourself. See what those 15. I don't know. Should we? Let's see what we can do here. QAI. Let's see what it tells us. Let's see what those 15 words are, shall we? And it's spelled Q period AI, and isn't this interesting? In a world full of noise, we craft a new kind of quiet. It says, magic realized. Let me count the words, make sure they're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. They were right. So let's do that again. In a world full of noise, we craft a new kind of quiet. Magic realized. Interesting. So now we know what those 15 words are, and I bet there's a whole lot of meaning beneath those words, don't you? One filing details, so it says, and these patents, we can look at it. They say we can figure out kind of. It doesn't say what it is, but by looking at the patents, we can get an idea. It says one filing details technology capable of determining an emotional state of an individual based on facial skin micromovements. The same filing says the technology could be used to identify a user based on heart rate and breathing rate. Another filing says QAI software synthesizes speech in response to words articulated silently by the test subject. I guess that means in your mind. What are you thinking? QAI's technology centers around silent speech. This is the idea that before we vocalize words and move our mouths to emit sounds, our brain has already sent signals to muscles in our throat and face, determining what we're going to say. QAI claims to have invented infrared sensors that can pick up these pre-speech micro movements. One filing talks about a sensing device configured to fit an ear of a user with an optical sensing head which senses light reflected from the face and outputs a signal in response. Processing circuitry processes the signal to generate a speech output. Tech bloggers have suggested Apple has bought the company to enable nonverbal control of an iPhone and other devices via its AirPod, earphones, or smart glasses. An annotated diagram included the patent shows a person wearing glasses and an earpiece integrating the technology. Okay. Like I say, I'll put that up. I'll put a link to that article on the Patreon channel. The threat of that to individual privacy is obvious, isn't it? Let me take a sip of my coffee here. When I read, I tend to get a dry mouth. You combine this with, well, think about this. How could this be used against you? That's the question. How could this be used against us? Right? What was that movie that Tom Cruise made about pre-crime? And of course, there's technologies. And we know, DARPA and others, whatever we know about, we're 10 years behind, right? How do you protect against things that you don't even know about? How do you protect against things that you don't even understand, right? Well, the human spirit, not in everybody. Some people will just roll along and go with the program and not worry about it. And to be honest, if you're doing everything exactly right, if you're doing everything exactly the way you're told, you don't need to worry about any of this stuff. But how many people does that describe? Does that describe you? Do you do everything you're told? Everything exactly the way you should? Well, some people do. But you know the old saying that nobody gets to lunch without committing a felony they know nothing about. And of course, control of people is done through laws, right? Not just laws, but other ways, as we see in the Epstein files. And I'm going to be talking about the Epstein files a little bit in the next one. I've never really talked about that before. I will in the next one a little bit. But the history of humankind has been the story of one person or one group's attempt to control another person or group, and the attempt by the controlled person or group to be able to defend against that control, overcome that control, right? So this seems to me as if it's, the technology that is being promoted and developed through these major corporations and governments. The individual isn't, we're not in any position to be able to circumvent that or protect ourselves against it or even turn it back against the others. Or are we? Or are we? Well, that begins with wanting to, doesn't it? Wanting to. My suggestion is always, and I will go back to, again, here's a lesson from organized crime, the mob. Fly under the radar as much as you can. Try to go along with the program as much as you can. Make yourself invisible to the system as much as you can. There will be people, not so much anymore, but back several years ago, we'd get a lot of comments on that. Say, I'm, slamming their little fist on the table and bouncing their Cheetos all over the place. I am not going to compromise my principles. I'm going to stand up for my principles. And of course, that's the ones who say that never do. But what it is the typical gray man, making yourself the technological gray man. Right? Now, you might, if you watched my video, and I did it some time ago. I always wondered about these creators who say, I made this in, I think 6 months ago or 3 years ago. I have no idea. When I make a video, I make it, and then it's out there. And the closest that I can get is sometime back I made a video, But I did make one about, I don't necessarily agree with the gray man principle. Now, in some cases I do, but in other cases I don't, because while it can be important to be somewhat invisible from, a common threat, it can also be important to be able to extend your influence on the world around you. So leaving that aside, when it comes to technology like this, very few of us, if any, have the ability to actually combat this. Okay, what we need to do is hide from it. So here is, fly under the radar, be the technological gray man as much as you can. Are you going to control your thoughts? Well, this is interesting because that takes us to a biblical principle, right? It takes us to a principle that where Jesus himself said, he said, the law of Moses said, for instance, do not commit adultery. But I say, If you have done it, even in your mind, you have done it. Now that's very interesting, right? That the words of Christ already, kind of pre, you know. Well, and then there's that saying that we are responsible for our second thought and our first action. Okay. What I would suggest is that thoughts that you have here, in the future. I don't think anybody's targeting me or you with this yet, right? I don't think so. I know that I can open my phone with facial recognition. Am I thrilled about that? No, I'm not thrilled with it, but we live in an increasingly technologically driven world, and that's the way it is. But I don't think any of us are immediately in danger with this, but immediately, one day, right now is now. But when it happens to where the threat is here, it's still now. You got to deal with it. So there. I tell you, I don't want to get into metaphysics here, but there are techniques for empty-mindedness. And sometimes, well, I will say that some of us worked in that. Not even to have a thought, right, or to dissuade ourselves, while keeping a main. Boy, this is getting deep, and I really don't want to get this deep. Anyway, let me say. Mind your P's and Q's. Don't make yourself noticeable. But when that day comes, I know that there will be people working on overcoming this. Just like the one that I put up about defeating microwave weapons. Okay. There's other things about defeating acoustic weapons. Every weapon that's formed, somebody is going to come out, some very smart people, are going to come out and develop a response to it, and probably the same with this. But just be aware of it. That's the main thing. Be aware of how fast technology is advancing, and like I say, what we know, we're 10 years behind probably. So maybe they can already do it. Who knows? So don't have any dirty thoughts, right? I laugh, but this isn't funny. I laugh because, well, it is kind of, it's interesting. This is going to be a fascinating challenge, isn't it? A fascinating challenge. What immediately occurs to me, I would love to hear what you all think about this. There may be some of you out there. I suspect there might be a couple of people on the Patreon channel who know a little bit about this. And they may or may not be able to say anything about it. If you want to, and if you can, please do on the Patreon channel. I would say that the use of masks would be interesting, important, in order to keep them from reading my heart rate, maybe a foil-lined jacket, in order to keep them from identifying me by my breathing patterns. Well, there's all sorts of stuff. Let me say this. In the old days, people would put a rock in their shoe to make them walk differently so that they couldn't be identified, by their gait. Other times, people would carry a thumbtack or a pin in their hand and press it into their flesh to cause pain, to change their heart rate and their breathing. I just throw that out, little things like that. Anyway, be aware of this, and let me know what you think about this. I will be interested to know. And one last reminder, I spent yesterday all day signing books and boxing up books that are going to be shipped out today. So if you haven't bought yours yet and you'd like to, this series will change the way you think about preparedness. And you can get them, like I said, either through Amazon or directly from me, which I love it when you do that. Stonemont.us, the link's down below. You will love it. You'll learn more than you can shake a bundle of sticks at. So what do you think about this? Let me know. And for those of you who read over on Patreon, read the article and see what you think. Remember that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow, and remember, you are surrounded by enemies. And I'll talk about that next time. Y'all have a good day. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.